As we've been discussing, Bitcoin is initiating a continued micro dumpathon, and alongside the stock market, potentially setting up for a flash dumpy that will catch many with their pants down, their thumbs in their mouths, and tears in their eyes. And this one signal happening right now on the charts is honestly even bigger than all of that. Bitcoin is continuing its dumpathon that we've been discussing for the past week or so, and in fact, just moments ago, breached below 60,000 US dollars for the very first time since the first week of March before we exploded up to those new all-time highs. But what if I told you we haven't seen anything yet? So if you understand on getting dumped on is the name of the game, hit that like, hit the subscribe, get sent up to FEMX or BINGX below if you want to buy Bitcoin or altcoins. And without any further ado, let's jump into the charts right now where we see Bitcoin just moments ago, and I personally believe this chart is going to look vastly different when I upload this video in about 45 minutes, right? By the time I upload, well, actually, the past few videos, by the time I upload, it actually has been dumping within minutes of upload each time. So let's take a guess. By the time this video gets uploaded, are we going to continue to see even a bigger dump? So we did already see Bitcoin go quickly, very, very shortly, below 60,000 US dollars for the very first time since the flash crash back on March 5th. Bitcoin was at about 69,000. Nice. It crashed all the way down to 59,000 and then rebounded back up to 64,000 all within 24 hours. That is by far the biggest candle and wick we see on this chart going back all the way to the beginning of this year, right here, March 5th. It was the most volatile day. Now, this is our very first time going below 60K since then, so that's important. Now, also, what is happening on the daily chart is no small thing. In fact, I would go as far as to say this is a big thing happening. We are very quickly, especially if this dump accelerates, going to see a bearish cross on the daily chart, the 21 go below the 50-day moving average. And ask anyone that's been in these markets. This is not small. This is big. Anyone will tell you this is big. Quite honestly, that's what everyone says. We see here the last time we had a cross here was a bullish cross on February 12th. And what do you actually notice what happened here? So we had this bullish cross, but then we kind of just traded sideways in a little dumpy for about 2 weeks after getting that cross. Why is that? So very often these crosses, especially death crosses, which are on the weekly chart, especially on longer term time frames, usually when we get these crosses, it is actually more signaling pretty much the end of the move. So we're about to get a bearish cross here. How do we get a bearish cross? Well, we need a lot of bearish price action first for the moving averages to trend bearish, right? We need bearish price action in the short term that overlaps with the slightly longer term, which is the 50, so the 21 and the 50. So very often, these are not signals to say, hey, this is the beginning of a massive dumpy trend. Usually, what it means is that, we've already been in a dumpy trend for a prolonged amount of time, and potentially we might see the most volatile, dumpiest part of it before then, usually trading sideways and sometimes, most likely even reversing, especially if we look on a longer term time frame, which we will in a second. Here we have case in point, right here back on January 23rd, Bitcoin this was the last time it had a bearish cross. It was at about 43,000. It did dump all the way down to 37, or right about 38,000. But then that was pretty much the end of the dump. And then we actually quickly had a bullish cross a few weeks later, and Bitcoin continued this bull market, which I firmly believe we're in a very strong bull market. But we still get dumps in bull markets. Okay, keep that in mind. You will still get dumps in bull markets. You look on the weekly chart. I mean, if we go right here to Bitcoin, clearly, as I've been saying for a long time, we could still visit 52,000. And so what I just said about, we're getting this bearish cross, it means, in my opinion, most likely the dumpiness is nearing an end. However, we're probably going to see the most explosive part of the dumpy coming up soon, the most volatile part, meaning we still could drop a lot right here. And as I've been saying for weeks, even if we go down to about 50,000, that is realistic and healthy. That is right where the 21-week moving average is. That's a level that I'm looking at to basically enter more long positions. We have the halving now in just pretty much, we're down to hours, just a few days away. We're extremely close to the Bitcoin halving. And it probably, at least at this point, it looks like it's shaping up to be a sell the news event, which is not really unusual. Okay, Bitcoin, I don't think has ever pumped the day of the halving. It's always been either sideways or really dumpiness, usually the day of the halving. So basically clockwork. So nothing new there. But ultimately, yeah, I personally still think we could see, and I said this in the last video, the entire video that I talked about the last time I posted 2 days ago, I talked about getting a flash dumpy here. This is the weekly chart. We have 4 days left of this weekly candle. Okay, we have 4 days left. If we see this candle body extend all the way down here, we see a massive crash like that. And then before the candle even closes, let's say we have a massive wick that kind of brings us even back above 60,000 or something. That is such a realistic scenario. And that's almost what my base case is for the next 1 to 2 weeks. Is that my personal opinion is that we could see this dump get very big, very quick. People get very scared. It happens very quickly. And then within a day or two of that massive dump, we have a massive wick bought up and potentially even get us back above 58 to 60,000. Why do I say 58,000? Well, also, as I've been saying for weeks, 58,000 is a massive level of accumulated volume. You look on the weekly chart and you look at the VRVP right here. This is the biggest level below us that's closest to us. Obviously, the lower you go, the more accumulated volume, the more support there is, the lower you go. But you can see right now, we're kind of in this no man's zone, the no-no zone. And really, volume really starts to pick up at about 57 to 58,000 US dollars. It also was kind of right in that clump of the top of the last bull market. The double tops, right? We have these two tops. This is where most of the trading happened, right at about 57 to 58,000. So there's a lot of volume there. I think that what we might see is Bitcoin come down to 58 in a short wick, smash through it, below it, okay, maybe down to the $50,000 level, and then ultimately within a day or two actually reclaim some of this support and turn. Let me try and draw out what I'm thinking here. Ultimately, this is, I think, what's going to happen if I would have to draw it as a really bad drawing. Roughly, this is what I think makes the most sense right now. But yeah, that does require some dumpy in the short term. As I talked about when we got rejected out of this triangle, and this actually is still true. This is crazy. This was right. I said the first breakout is always a fake out of a symmetrical triangle, or usually a fake out. This was a fake out, and we swung the other direction. So, just remember, this is more evidence that I'm going to basically always believe this from now on. Symmetrical triangles, or first breakouts, are like always fake outs. Whichever way it breaks out of first is not the way that it's going to break out most likely. That's just how symmetrical triangles break out for some reason. But I do want to take a look at this. On-chain college saying all eyes are on Bitcoin short-term holder basis, cost holder basis, which right now is about 59,000. A test at this level is seeming more and more likely. Yes, I believe even, as I've been saying for this whole video, slightly below that. We also see Bitcoin corrections can be worrisome, especially when we've been spoiled by no 30% corrections so far this cycle, which we usually get. And even with the ETFs present, they must occur. I agree. At this point, it seems very reasonable to say that. And CryptoCon basically pointing out 55,000 is a level of support. And again, that's right in that same range. We're just arguing over a couple $1,000s if you really want to get, picky or specific. But overall, that still makes sense to me. Again, we do have to highlight this is the breakdown. The Bollinger Bands are expanding. The Bollinger Bands are expanding. This is the volatile move. We could see this very quickly swing much lower, okay? And also right around that $57,000 level, there also is the 100-day moving average. I think it's just overall a nice level to get a pullback to. It makes sense to me. But in the very short term, watch out for those flash crash wicks. Because, and this is so important, I think people forget this sometimes, is that if Bitcoin crashes down to 50,000 US dollars, and then like 2 hours later, it's back above 56 or 57, ultimately, and it holds there, and like we get daily closes there, ultimately saying 56, 57,000 is the level of support, even though it went a couple $1,000s below it in the short term, 56 to 57 is still massive support. Sometimes you get those massive wicks. So you need to factor in where the daily closes actually are. But I personally think we could wick all the way down to the 50,000s. If it gets crazy, maybe even slightly below 50,000 in a wick. But I think it would be a wick. Now, the stock market also is doing the same thing. The stock market is getting dumped on. The stock market is initiating its biggest dump really since October of 2023 at this point. This is the very first time that the stock market, I'm talking about the SPX specifically, but they all kind of do the same thing roughly. they're all getting dumped on. In fact, the SPX is down the least. Actually, the Nasdaq's down 1.3% right now. SPX is down 0.6, and the Dow Jones is down 0.3. So yeah, I mean, they're all getting dumped on is the point. Let me actually just look at the Dow Jones. Yeah, it looks exactly the same. It looks exactly the same. In fact, the Dow Jones is about to get a bearish cross, where the SPX is, there's still a decent amount of time before we get a bearish cross on the SPX. But I mean, look at this structure. This looks very similar to September and October 2023. It is the biggest correction we've had this year. It's the biggest correction we've had already in the last 6 months. And the correction could go much lower is my point. But ultimately, I'm long-term and even medium-term bullish. I'm just very short-term bearish, right? I'm very short-term bearish. I've been saying that for the past 1 to 2 weeks. And actually the DXY is having a little bit of a red day today, which I think is important to watch also. There was one major chart I wanted to look at. I mean, to sum it up, I think people need to be prepared for a potential flash crash here. Could we hold ultimately at 60,000 and not go below it, and this is the ultimate bottom, and then we just keep going up? It's definitely possible, but it's absolutely not what my strong opinion is. I don't think it's not my base case at all. I personally think we will go lower before we go higher. I think that we will go lower. And if you would ask me, I think we will go lower before we see new all-time highs above 75,000. Some people are drawing this as like right around here as like a 60K, maybe. But to me, this looks, I'm just being honest. Okay, I'm like 100% in crypto. I'm not saying this. I'm not going to benefit if Bitcoin. Actually, I will benefit because I'll just buy a lot, whatever I can. If we get a big dump, I'm just going to buy a lot. But yeah, I don't know. This pattern doesn't look like it's necessarily support to me. It looks like it's about to have a quick dump. Just being honest, it's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong, but so far it's been playing out like exactly what this dump scenario that I've been talking about for weeks now looks like, and it just continues to play out. I mean, look at this daily chart, for example. This is not a chart that looks like it's about to just immediately start exploding up. It looks like we need to face a correction. It looks like we need to get dumped on first. And that's not a bad thing. You can get sent up to BINGX or BINGX below if you want to buy Bitcoin or altcoins. Without further ado,